Well, thanks to the BOS for making me a special guest. Some of the models that I have made, I was making some tools. I made a toolbox and made a screwdriver and a hammer, and I had a tape measure that was nearby, and I was thinking, well, that's impossible to make one of those, and I kept on going over and remaking the models, and it was one of those models to prove that you can't make it, and I came up with my retractable tape measure that went in the toolbox. That was a collection of ones. There are some of the tools here that I made, and then there was a skip and a traffic cone, and I thought, let's make. I know there were some nice cars made, and so I made a Robin Reliant, the worst car ever. So, but not in not in a bad way, but it's in a good way. And also in that book, I had 80 pages. I tried to sort of make, and my golf has just fallen over, but there's a golf course in there, and we've got some tools and a miniature tape measure in there and a brick. And in creating origami, you hazardly come across recreating somebody's work, but if it's done in a different way or slightly different way, it doesn't matter. But so the brick was one of those. I've done an origami skip. I don't think anyone else has done one of those. or a Robin Reliant, and I've made a piece of road in there as well. And Herman Lau made 2 flowers in a pot, 1 flower in a pot, and I realised you could make 2 flowers in a pot, and that's quite a nice colour change on that one. So thanks to Herman Lau for inspiration on that one. And binoculars, again, that's a rediscovery. Apparently that's been done before, but and a hammer, I think, and tools. But most people have done tools of sorts, and that's mainly on the under construction one. Also in there is I've made some Daleks and some telephones, and the Slinky was done later on. It's not in that book, but the Slinky was part of the telephone lead that I'd made, and I didn't realise that the existing Slinky didn't work. And that's the under construction. Everyone's doing animals, and or at the time that do animals, and I thought, well, why not make inanimate objects that don't particularly move or flap but they, it's nice if they do, but I just picked that subject. It wasn't animals at all particularly. If I see an animal in the shape, then I'll make it. And I didn't realise that I'd made a Slinky, but then, well, I did in a way. Halle. Now he did the Slinky Dog from Toy Story, and I thought, hang on a minute, you've folded that wrong. And I didn't realise that I'd heard of the origami Slinky, but I didn't know that it didn't work. I just, and I'm thinking, well, why? And that gave me a clue then, but it wasn't until a convention here with Mick Guy who said, let's make Slinky because it doesn't work. And I'm thinking, well, you should have asked me back in 2001, and I could have told you. And so I'd made it out of I'd folded the telephone lead as the original one, which is like just a reverse fold, inside reverse fold, and then it doesn't work. Looks okay, and I wanted to make it spring back after I've used the phone. So I tried a forward fold on it. It can't be any worse, and that's even what it was worth. But it gave you a compression spring. And there was something technical detail, obviously on QI or documentary, that had engineers that made a hollow spindle on a jet engine to stop snow or ice forming on the cone, and that didn't work. And lazy engineers only covered up one end of the cone, and that seems to work. So why was it working? Why did it stop ice forming? And what it was centrifugally spinning the air out and sucking air in the centre, and it was sucking in warm air and keeping the cone warm, and that worked, and that gave me the idea of using a compression spring, and really you're taking one end through to the other end and wrapping one outside the other, and you're making a tension spring. That's what gave me the idea.
What does a tension spring actually mean?
Tension, you're pulling it under tension, yeah? Compression is a compression spring. If I fold it back the other way, so when I fold these, that wants to go that way. That's a compression spring. And if you reverse it back in on itself, so you're taking this round the outside of the other, a bit like a vortex. If you've seen, you're taking that round the outside of the other. You're actually not reversing because the folds are the same, but you're pointing them in the opposite direction. So to me, it was like like a vortex, possibly. And that was the inspiration behind that. But just to make a telephone lead that returned back. Well, it puts all the tension inside. All of the weight and tension is now levered on the inside. So each one levers on the inside rather than partially on the inside, just on the outside. So now the Origami Slinky works, right? Whereas it didn't do. This is about 6 meters or 8 meters of craft paper. Now to get that, and it's about I suppose a 1-inch ribbon. So I get a craft paper and chop the end off, either hacksaw it or chop the end off, and you've got yourself a ribbon. And you can pull that out, and I've done it 4 layers. So I folded it in, so it's 4 layers. And then I've wrap it round a former, just make a cardboard former, and just to get so it comes out neatly. You don't have to, but it just makes it, and you fold it round, and once it's done, I'd leave it for a while just to compress it, so it takes its hold its fold, and then you take it out and reverse fold it, and you're there. And here I've used a single strip of box wrapping. This is what you trip over on people discard it, and I've managed to get hold of, and that's about 10 meters there. But this needs thermosetting. So again, I've fixed it on a former and cable tied it in place. So you now need to thermoset that. So I've put a dishcloth over, and be careful at home, folks. But you pour hot water on there, and then it thermosets it almost immediately in place under cold water, and we're done. Sharon Turvey made some eyes and did a geometric shape on that, and I did mention to her ages back that if you could put a spring on there, you can make play a trip and have like an eye poking out, and we had a giggle at that. And then I realised when we'd done the Origami Slinky, we made that, I realised you can tighten the spring up, and it took a while to get the spring to hold the tension of, or the weight of these, and you can make a reasonable set of googly eyes, and they do hold on quite well, and there you go. I've gone through different avenues, so these came up later than the Slinky, and I'm aware of other people's books with geometrics, and I've had a go at doing that, but not making geometrics. What made me try to make some folds on the geometrics was Iris Walker. She did a ball within a ball, and what she did was put 4 octagons on a flat sheet of paper and then folded them into heptagons, so they dimpled in, and you could make a ball of 2 different sizes of that. And that gave me the realisation, obviously old knowledge to some, but it gave me the realisation I could make a bigger geometric form from that. I did try to make a buckyball, but I still haven't succeeded on that, and it looked more like a strawberry. But then I did have a thought on this one. This is a one-piece one, and I think that's I'm not too sure what the name is on that one, but that's a one-piece one that folds in on itself. I was asked, was it Toki Yen, and no, it wasn't. It was from Iris Walker that gave me that, and I've come up with a few more geometric shapes, and keeping it away from. I think this one's more recent, and that's more like Irish Walkers because it's a ball within a ball, but I haven't actually sort of used a geometric shape to thing. I've just done a basic fold to get a rhombic dodecahedron. So that's, you know, just slightly smaller sizes. You make the shape, they sit in, and you know it doesn't knock together. You know, but I'm quite happy with that one. So I'll diagram that. Again, someone else may have come up with that one, but that's a hazard of. I mean, it's not a new shape, but by any means. But it's nice to get to that shape, and these are quite new. This one's made from 4 pentagons that lock together. That's quite a strong fold. That one, it won't. But it's a pain in the neck to fold. But once you're there, it does hold itself. And that was a study on, actually a study on Toki Yen, right? You know, so that one. And recently I've done I'm calling it a Toki Yen cube. I don't know if he's made it. I haven't got diagrams for it, but he did say there's a pattern in there, and I've made that from it. So I'll call it a Toki Yen cube because he must have made it, but I've only got one book and one video of his, so that's on there. And you can see some animals in geometric form. I've got some tortoises from a twist fold of hexagons, and I've been doing twist folds on hexagons and equilateral triangles. And a while back I did some cogs as well. Whether we're going to go to cogs or stick on the geometric, because I have gone several avenues and I keep swapping from each one. So
how about the mask?
The mask, you want the mask? Well, that was a study on equilateral triangles. I did some dollar bills. So the mask. This is what led up to the mask. I made some little faces from dollar bills, and then I thought you could make a robot mask out of silver, like a mirror acetate. And on one side it's painted, and the other side on the plastic. And I've used T-cut to wear away the paint on one side. You could probably use Brasso or whatever, but and obviously clean it up, and then you can make the mask, and I can see through. It's not so you've got a robot mask, and it doesn't look like I can see through. But you know, if you come up close, you can see my eyes. But I try not to fold with good paper. You know, a good tip is always fold with rubbish paper, and then you think, well, this material would be better to fold with. And some materials are really a pain in the neck to fold, an absolute pain in the neck. But once they're there, it's ideal. So with acetate, you can make this icosahedron, and that is just a nightmare to fold with. It just doesn't want to. And this is like a soft acetate, but once you're there, you know, it holds itself, and that will, and I've thermoset that one with hot water, and you've got yourself a little
with the hot water method.
with the hot water method, yeah. But this you can make. I like this icosahedron because you can dimple this in and make a very strong non-wobbly bowl, and that's quite solid. And so someone had a theory that you can't stack more than 10 things before it deforms, and I reckon that will stack more than 10 easy. And you can actually make a bowl. So that's a bowl that holds a bowl, and that will hold water right up to the rim. That's quite strong. It's quite strong. Obviously you can't stand on it, but it will hold its weight in liquid on that one. Might have some application there for something, I don't know. I wanted to make. Let's show you the digger first. And this one was. I've used Max Holmes tank tracks on this, and it's a nice colour change on there. And I knew that, I can make a digger, and with a separate one arm. So you've got a nice colour change on the shovel. I was quite pleased with that one. So you've got several ideas, other people's ideas. Well. Into one. Let's make a digger with a working shovel. That's And then I wanted to make some cogs that worked and meshed in together, because that's just simple pleat folding with 90 degrees in there, and which I did make, and I made some castling to fit the cogs in, and then I realised I wanted to make a bigger cog, and I could make a cog from that castling, wrap it in on itself, and it does sit in, so that this is a bit like in between Lego or Connects, you know what I mean? It's like a Lego block, but you can put a tubular, a bit of paper on that and add it to something else, so we can make a structure. So I did make a differential gearbox out of that, and then realised that these bits can zip into each other, so I've made a zip as well. It's not one person, you're always bouncing off of loads of people. I could go on endless for people's names, but I suppose Iris Walker from the geometrics. I do like Max's stuff. That's great. It's all without going through some of his stuff, it wouldn't have given me the carcelisation of things. And I don't know if anyone else, but you can then just fold things. But he does that with lots of his stuff. You can just add a 45 in there and a thing in there. You can add to. Dave Brill's brilliant origami books, very good. I like that one. That's everyone likes that one. That's good. But I don't want to talk about the next inspiration theme, because if I say I'm going to make so and so, then I'm obliged to make this sort of thing. So it'll happen when it happens, and I'll show you when it gets there. Otherwise, people will say, "Well, you said you was going to make it," and I'm not even saying I said I was going to make it, because someone will switch that round that I've said I was going to make, and it might prove to be impossible to make. So I would choose a tape measure, because that was my one to prove it can't work, and there's nothing like it that I can see that's similar. So I think that concept was my own to prove it couldn't work, and I've proved that it could work. Just and I don't know of anyone that's done a tape measure other on the straight edge that's retractable. So, and there is origami that is. So like an origami flapping bird is a model of a flapping bird. It's not. That is a tape measure. But like an origami paper plane is a paper plane, because it flies. So there's probably a book there, something on what origami is, or is, but not a replica. So a lot of stuff that we make is a replication of a cog or a bulldozer. I suppose geometric shapes are geometric shapes. Oh, there's a hat here. And this is made from an equilateral triangle, and also the feather's made from an equilateral triangle. It's just pleated, so there's no old knowledge there. And whether it works in the rain, I don't think it's going to work in the rain, but it makes a good Buccaneers hat, shall we say.
Sorry.
And also, no, it's all right. Well, other hats, if I'm looking ridiculous, I might as well make myself look totally ridiculous. There's other hats on the market. This won't keep your ears dry in the rain either, but there you go. Why I'm doing my hands like that, I don't know, but I didn't do that at the same time.